Good morning, everyone. My name is Jeff Willis, and I am the International Division Director at the State of Kansas Department of Commerce. Welcome to the latest webinar in our series focusing on providing Kansas companies with insights and tools they can use to advance their international business. Today, we are again partnering with Kansas Global Trade Services based in Wichita to provide you with some timely information regarding opportunities in Spain and Portugal. There are many markets around the world that are starting to surge again now that much of the impact of the pandemic on international trade is subsiding. Our presenters for the webinar will talk about what is happening in Spain and Portugal right now and why it makes sense to seriously consider taking a closer look at those markets. As you will learn from Laura Lombard, the President and CEO of Kansas Global Trade Services, a trade mission to those countries is also in the works. Trade missions can be excellent vehicles for gaining a greater understanding of any market and can be a great way for both companies with experience in a market as well as those just entering a market for the first time to advance their sales objectives. Before I introduce Laura to get into the substance of the program, I'd like to go over some brief housekeeping matters for today's event. First off, as you can see, we're recording the webinar today, so you'll be able to access it at a later date should you want to do so. We will forward all attendees the link to the video once it has been posted. We'll also look forward to your questions. We'll manage those through the chat feature. Don't hesitate to ask questions at any time during the webinar, but we'll reserve some time toward the end of the program to address them, unless, of course, the speakers wish to address them immediately, and I leave that up to them. But time will be set aside to be able to address questions at the end. And with that, I'd like to turn the program over to Laura Lombard, the President and CEO of Kansas Global. Laura.
Thank you, Jeff. As always, great to work with you on collaborations like this. And as some of you already may know who've joined the call, Kansas Global and the Kansas Department of Commerce have been long-term partners on helping companies in Kansas that are interested in exporting and expanding abroad. Today, though, we are also joined with another partner, Gedeth Network, who is our partner in Spain. In just a moment, I will introduce Juan Milan, our speaker today from the Gedeth Network. But first, I just wanted to explain that we will be hosting several of these types of webinars on different countries across the globe over the coming months. Next up after this, we'll be doing one on Poland in September. We'll talk a little bit at the end of the program about that, so you can mark your calendars for that one as well. But we selected Spain as our first market because, as Jeff said in his opening remarks, we are planning a trade mission in October. A little later in the program, after Juan has told us more about what's going on in Spain currently that might be of interest to companies now, I will talk a little bit about the details of the trade mission for those of you who might be interested in participating. Our speaker today is Juan Milan. He has become a good friend and a wonderful partner for us in Spain. He is the founder of Gedeth Network, and with more than 20 years of experience, he originally started off working with risk control and internal audit, which are companies that work with larger corporations such as Pfizer and Carrefour. More recently, he worked for Promo Madrid, where he was responsible for attracting investment and working as a senior business development consultant. Juan, welcome today. We're looking forward to hearing your remarks. And just to kind of start off with a fun question, what are some of the things that you love the most about your country?
Well, first of all, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here presenting. Regarding the type of things I like about my country, maybe we should set aside some extra time for that because there are so many. The best thing is, I think, probably the quality of life. If you look at the figures, it's not me answering that, it's international rankings, and Portugal and Spain, both of them share the first positions in the quality of life rankings worldwide. If you, for example, life expectancy, Spain and Portugal are always top with Japan. So you know that living here, you have a good quality of life and a long life. So that's a good start. Definitely food and wine, well, food and beverage is why we are well known. And regarding business, I think we have a good mix of quality and professionalism with addressing the good things in life. Like when you do business in Spain, it's not all about money. It's about creating relationships. And as you just mentioned, when we do business, we not only focus on the business side or the money side of the operation, but also creating relationship, which makes it's a very enriching process. So I would say it's a good opportunity to, well, for in my case, uh, to show off about Spain. I will share some figures that probably some of you will not know because they are not so spread, but are quite shocking. Even for myself, I have to say, preparing this presentation, I learned some things that I didn't know about my country.
Wonderful. Sounds good, Juan. Well, I'm going to let you take it from here and tell us all about the opportunities you see for Kansas businesses.
Okay, thank you. I will start sharing the screen. Can you see it? I'm guessing yes. Okay, so
yes, we can. Yes.
Okay, good. Let's go here. So the first lesson after COVID is keeping presentation brief, like at least video presentation, because otherwise we are a bit overwhelmed with webinars. So I promise to keep it brief for you. And as Jeff and Laura mentioned, I will be happy to answer all your questions at the end of it. The first thing would be putting in some context here, and the US and European Union, which both Spain and Portugal belong to, share the largest economic relationship in the world. So we are talking a very well-known path in terms of volume. We are talking 1.1 trillion before COVID, and things are recovering. And another thing we want to mention is, as you probably heard, well, Brexit happened. It's something we didn't desire at the rest of the European Union, but English are very specific. So in a way, it was a big step backwards for us as a European Union vision. But at the same time, it creates an opportunity because traditionally UK was the natural door to the European Union market for a lot of North American companies because of language, well, history, and now these companies still needs a door to the continental European Union, which is, as we mentioned before, the largest single area market in the world. So Spain's got an opportunity to be this partner, Spain or Portugal have the opportunity to be this partner for the American companies. The other thing, and this is one of the main headlines for today, is because of COVID and the European Union launched the European Green Deal with 750 billion euros to not only recover, but also propel the green transformation of the European Union. And all in all, including the budget, is going to be 1.8 trillion from here to 2026. Spain itself is getting 200 billion of that money. So it means a lot of funds are going to be arriving into Spain. And I have to tell you, by now, we don't have the resources internally to manage. So we are going to be needing help to deliver all these funds. In the case of Spain, the Next Gen, which is one of the programs, are going to represent 140 billion. On top of that, there are 60 billion euros that are attached to regular European programs. So in this, for this money, Spain has decided to focus on green transition, digital transformation, and social and territorial cohesion. That's the three pillars we are going to be focusing the investment. And by now, Spain, I can tell you, is at the forefront of the reforms in that. The other thing we want to mention is the excellent relationship we have, Spain and the United States. The United States is major exporter and investor in Spain. The trade flows are brutal, and we were thinking about the reasons. Why is that? Why the United States, which is far away, is the largest exporter? And the first thing is good image of North American products and services. Like we are very welcoming to these products and services. And the other thing is our local industry is either less advanced or less protectionist than others in the European Union. Some of the countries within the European Union believe their industry is much better, so they are a bit more reluctant to accept technology or products from other countries, specifically the United States. In Spain, we are more open, and same for Portugal. And the other main reason for this trade record is that we already have a very large base of American companies in Spain. We will see that in detail. More specifically, from Kansas, the figures are still small compared to the whole United States, but are keeping consistent throughout the years. We put here the figures for before COVID because they were the latest available in both sides. And you can see Spain is either the 15th or the 17th largest exporter-importer for Kansas. Another thing I want to mention, so to give you the idea, is Spain as such is the fourth largest economy in the Eurozone. Our GDP is $1.3 trillion. If combined with the Portuguese GDP, which is 250 billion, it's very similar to what you can find in Italy. And same happens with population. Our population is 47 million. Portugal population is 10 million. So the combination of both of them is similar to United Kingdom or France. So in terms of market size, it's quite attractive within Europe. And as I mentioned before, 70 of the 100 largest companies in the Forbes Global are in Spain already. And again, the main data for you is that once you access the Spanish or the Portuguese market, you are immediately accessing a market of 500 million consumers with the world highest purchasing power. That's very important. Another headlines in terms that I was not even aware myself. In terms of growth, Spain expects the highest growth for 2022, even considering the Ukraine war. We are talking 8.1%. That's quite impressive. And regarding employment, last month of June, Spain reached the historical records for more than 20 million active workers. That's something we just found out the other day, and it's you live here and you are not aware of the good news. The other thing I want to mention, and you will find interesting, is Spain and Portugal offer the best opportunities to access Europe, not only for cultural proximity, language. A thing that a lot of North Americans don't know is the United States is the country with the second largest population of Spanish speaking. You've already surpassed Spain with population in Spanish. So there are a lot of workers in the United States that already have Spanish as a first or second language. But the main focus and business-wise is also from the logistic and infrastructure, not only to access Europe, but our privileged situation with Africa, which are at the moment providing some countries with the largest GDP growth in the world, mostly in the West Africa, is also something to get in mind. And the other main thing that you already probably heard of is the mega trend. The same is happening in the United States with Mexico or Central America, that companies are reshoring into Mexico and Central America as opposed to Asia. It's happening in Europe. We are stop producing in Asia and China because of the the threats, and we are starting to reshoring into Europe and Spain, given and Portugal, given the special location. We are on top of that with some European Eastern countries. Just some figures for the hyper connection we can offer is we have 50 airports, 46 ports, 4 of the major European ports are in Spain, Valencia, Barcelona, Algeciras. We have the largest network of highways and freeways in the European Union, and the third most extensive high-speed train network. That's very practical when you do business, for example, for a trade delegation, and you want to go from Madrid to Barcelona, which is 600 kilometers, and you make it in 2 hours, 2.5 hours by train, or to go to Malaga is 2.5 hours. So you don't need to take a plane for that. It's quite impressive. So going into more details about how to do business and the specific opportunities, the first thing you need to know is it applies for both countries, Spain and Portugal. The legislation is mostly European. We have European regulation, which should be similar to federal for you. And it's split between European regulation and directives. They varies depending on how mandatory and the time frame, but it's applicable for all the European countries. A quick overview on Portugal, the population of 10 million, capital Lisbon, as you know, but Porto and Braga are also main cities. One of the headlines I want to give you, both Spain and Portugal receive a massive amount of tourists. So when you look at our market size, and we mentioned before population, Portugal received 25 million tourists in 2019 before COVID, that's the latest, but Spain received almost 90. So all in all, we are talking over 100 million extra market size. So your product and service can be showcasing in front of over 100 million tourists on top of the local markets. That's quite a difference. The other thing that you may want to be interested is the GDP per capita is averaging within Euro 24, 25. They're doing business ranked 34 before it was stopped. And something you need to know about Portugal is that Spain is the largest export market for them. Like I was looking at the figures updated as of today, and Spain represents practically 40% of the exports within the European Union. Yes, but it makes sense. If you look at the map, we literally are the same. We could be the same country. For centuries, we were the same country. So it makes sense the integration of our two economies. As I mentioned before, we share the longest life expectancy rates and quality of life. And one thing that is becoming hot at the moment is Lisbon as a hub for digital nomads. That's something that is becoming very trendy, and for some of you might be of interest. And going into more specific about Spain, we have a similar system than you, similar quasi-federal. We have 17 regional governments. They have a high level of autonomy and cultural identity. That I mentioned that because it will be relevant for your business strategy into Spain. For example, Catalonia, Valencia, Baleares, they share a second language called Catalonian. So potentially it might be recommendable to have a distributor for this area because it's advisable. Same thing happens with the Basque Country. They have the co-official language on top of Spanish, and with Galician in Galicia. So for some companies, it's wise to have a regional approach to cover the different sides of the different part of the country. It's also applicable to the islands. We have two sets of islands, Baleares and Islas Canarias. Islas Canarias is the thing you see at the bottom right. This is not true. Islas Canarias, if you see the previous map, is here. It's actually opposite Africa. It just to present it in a map, we normally put it in the back. But I mentioned this because it's also been recommendable to have a distributor specifically for the islands. Because of the distance, normally it's wise to have a local one. The other good thing that the Spanish market offers for you is we have, of course, Madrid, Barcelona. You are perfectly aware of that. They are main economic centers. But we can offer as a market cities with relevant populations such as Valencia, Bilbao, Malaga, that probably you heard out because a lot of investment is channeling through that. Vodafone just set up the largest 5G R&D. Google just set up the global cybersecurity hub in Malaga. So the good thing about Spain is on top of Madrid and Barcelona, we can offer these other cities with over 1 million population that are interesting enough for some small, medium companies that don't want to go to the capital city. They want to explore other regions. They are big enough. The market is big enough. We included the distribution of population in Spain, so you can see that it's mostly the coast and Madrid in the center. The other thing you might want to know is the breakdown of the type of companies you are going to be doing business in Spain. Spain is a macro, small company country. Like over 95% of the companies are small and medium companies, which represent 90% of the employment. And I want to mention this because also the way to do business is completely different to multinationals. The process are much shorter. The decision making is not immediate, but is more based on a personal relationship than big contracts or AOR that happens with multinational. It means there are more opportunities for you to do business here because it's more open for other new suppliers, whereas the big corporation, they only have, well, they have their global contracts, it's impossible to access. Regarding the sectors, that's the other vector you want to understand. Renewable energy, one of the pillars, as I mentioned before. Spain is ahead of the race. We have leading technology in solar and wind, but at the same time, we are managing a massive investment. Also now is the hydrogen, the coolest thing, but at the moment we can say it's one of the areas that the European funds are going to be channeled. There is a public investment of 6.9 billion forecasted, mostly for innovation and digitalization. And on top of that, it's forecasted almost a 10 billion investment from private. As you heard, with the Russia war, we are trying to reduce our dependency on fuel fossils energy, and we are quite advanced in LNG. Actually, Germany is asking for our technology in LNG because they don't have. They trusted only the Russian gas, and whereas we were quite advanced in liquid natural gas with 7 refineries here in Spain. The other main sector we want to showcase today is agri-food. Spain ranks second in the European Union for inarable land. Given the situation in Ukraine, this is very important because it means that the whole European Union depending so much on Ukraine wheat and other products, and now we realize we cannot depend on that. There is a potential shortage. So the fact that we have this massive arable land represents that there's going to be a lot of new movements in the next months, years, to readapt and reduce dependency on Ukrainian and Russia. And that's a very recent thing. The other thing, and before Russian war, is that the Spanish government is planning to invest 129 billion in 3 areas: food tech, organic products, and agri-tech. More specifically, regarding agri-food, the specific next-gen European Union is to boost the sectors, mostly in R&D, digitalization, and industry. There are some specific, Laura and I talked about this a long time ago, but there are specific programs, for example, to modernize a slaughterhouse. Traditionally, it was not very advanced, and there is a program for 3 billion just to modernize the slaughterhouse throughout Spain. We will be sharing with you the more details about organics and agri-tech, but for times, let me just go into digitalization. It's a transversal sector. 70 billion is going to be invested for digitalization of SMEs, connectivity, and digitalization of our public administration, which I can tell you is quite interesting for all of us. And just to start, well, to finalize, we want to mention some business recommendation. As I started, relationships are quite important, not only to selling, but to do business in general. And sometimes as much as price or quality. This is very important to bear in mind. Professional attire is recommended. Like, we are more casual than other countries in Europe, but still it's recommended. The other thing that may shock you is the decision-making process is still very hierarchical, like, which represents longer period of decision. It's still much shorter than any traditional multinational that you are going to be facing, but it still could be lower levels. Take more time. Regarding the English, I would say 30% of the managers are fluent in English, and in small companies, the percentage will be lower. And the social media we use is mostly LinkedIn. We don't use Facebook or Instagram or any of these. And definitely we prefer to use corporate email better than Hotmail, Yahoo, pretty much like any other Western countries. I mentioned we want to specifically do about payment terms. I included that because I work for American companies and it's a bit different. The standard payment terms at the moment is between 30 and 60 days, which is a bit higher than the United States. However, in large companies and retailers, even the law says it's not possible to do it over 60 days. You can find that they can impose the payment with different ways up to 6 months. This is something you have to be aware of it and make your decision whether you like it or not. The good thing is the pay. The bad thing is you need to include that in your quote. The other good news is digital payments are quite advanced. So in Spain, I can tell you is probably at the top of the digital payments. We even passed a law to develop the sandbox for fintech. So, for example, we develop Visum, which is the similar what you have in the United States with Cell. And just some conclusions. Our commercial procedures are aligned with the rest of Western Europe, and price and value still remain paramount. Pricing practice in Spain are similar, again, although probably expected profit margins are going to be lower than you are used to. The other good thing is Spain is a good market to enter not only Europe, but Latin America and Africa. American products and services are highly respected and welcome because we see the high level of technology and quality. And because it's a medium large size market, we may recommend regionalized strategies. This is something on a case-by-case basis. And well, Spain and Portugal are mature markets. They both require a great deal of pre-trip preparation by studying competition and adapting your products or services. And for that, I'm pretty sure Kansas Trade Department and Kansas Global can help you. So I think that's it. So Laura, if you wanna proceed.
Yeah, thanks, Juan. This was a fantastic presentation. A lot of great information for us and for the participants on this webinar. I'm gonna take moderator privilege just for a minute and ask you a couple of questions, and then I'm gonna open it up to some questions about your presentation or additional information about Spain. And then I'll talk a little bit about the upcoming trade mission. But a few questions that I wrote down as you were speaking. So at the very beginning of your presentation, you talked about some of the key areas for the next gen, and one of them that you mentioned was social and territorial cohesion. Can you talk a little bit about what that means and how that might pertain to business opportunities?
Perfect. Really good question. In Spain, if you look at the distribution of population, we have a high concentration of population in Barcelona, Madrid, and some cities. But if the inner side of the country is having is losing population, so the whole public policies are to help to fix population in these areas, because at the end of the day, we need is where we produce our food. So we need to fix population there, and for that they are putting money in digitalize the, well, first connectivity, as I mentioned, providing access to all these areas in no matter where you will have the same level of access in terms of internet and solutions. The other thing is developing the areas to interconnect in a global, well, not probably global, but supply chain. And for example, what I mentioned about the slaughterhouse, like traditionally it was very manual, not very sophisticated. And the idea is consolidating the size, providing more investment in terms of how to manage, and also try to develop more services and more value by working with R&D. So the main purpose from our government and European Union is fixing population in these areas with different programs.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I'm between two questions I want to ask you, so I may end up asking three, but we'll see. The next question, you touched on with the Ukraine war, some of the impacts regarding energy. Are you seeing any other impacts to speak of that might affect business going into Spain regarding the Ukraine-Russian war, or not? Just wanted to get your thoughts on that.
To be honest, it's not clear how it's going to impact Spain, Portugal, or any country. Like, we are still under a lot of uncertainty here. What I can give you as a fact is, because of this arable land disposable in Spain, there are already plans to develop new production in Spain, not only because we are farther away, so potentially we are not going to be impacted by any immediate extension of the war into other lands, but also because the land is quite good quality. It just, the labor costs were higher than in Ukraine, and Europe decided to produce or trust Ukrainian supplies because they were cheaper and good quality. But the arable land here is quite good. So I foresee a lot of investment in put that land into production. That's something. The other thing is regarding energy. As I mentioned, Spain, well, probably early 2004, we passed a massive national plan for renewable energy, which led Spain to be as I said, in solar and wind at the cutting edge of that sectors. And there was a downturn during the crisis, but now with the Russia, a lot of projects that were put on hold after the crisis are now on top. The main example is, as you probably heard, the idea is building a gasoduct. I don't know how to say in English. Sorry, gasoduct to transport gas.
A gas pipeline.
Yeah, gas pipeline. Yeah, sorry. So
That's
we are to supply gas, GNL gas, the one liquefied from Spain into Germany. So that's a massive change in the energy map in Europe, because traditionally, well, Germany only got their energy from Russia, and with this gas pipeline, Spain will be the largest producer.
Wonderful. Okay, and then I'm going to ask one more, and then for anyone else on the webinar that would like to ask, we'll open it up here in just one more minute. Juan, I'm asking you a question regarding the Canary Islands, because you and I had talked significantly about that earlier in the year, the opportunities that the Canary Islands provide. Can you talk a little bit about kind of the special arrangements that they have, or the Canary Islands have in general, that might be of interest to Kansas companies?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So sorry, you probably see so that I smile. I'm living at the Canary Islands at the moment, even though the company is headquartered in Madrid. The reason there are two reasons. The first one is the weather here is amazing. Is probably one of the best weathers in the world. Like temperature is between 21, 27. No humidity, no mosquitoes, no hurricanes. It's kind of paradise. But at the same time, because it's considered an ultra peripheral region within the European Union, they have a special tax scheme. So the VAT, sorry, I didn't mention before, the VAT in Spain, regional VAT, well, is 21%, in Portugal is 23%, rest of Europe similar. In the Canary Island, it's only 7%. The corporate tax in Spain is 25, in Portugal is a bit higher, France 33, in Canary Island is 4%. It's the lowest tax corporate tax in Europe. And the good thing is everything is sanctioned by European Union because they want to promote business in these regions. And also, it's an incredibly effective platform to do business in Africa. As I mentioned before, I didn't want to go into too much depth for that, but West Africa countries are growing very fast. Ghana, Ivory Coast, they are growing at rates over 9-10%, which is amazing. And you have a direct flight from the Canary Islands in an hour. So for a lot of companies, they want to base their business in the Canary Islands because you are using euro, you have social security, you have a good healthcare system, but you're doing business in Africa. Literally, well, you can actually see it is less than an hour away. So in so many ways, Canary Island is becoming a hub for business as a logistics platform, and also a good place to set up your company.
Great, thanks, Juan. All right, with that, I will refrain from asking any more questions unless needed. But would anyone on the webinar like to pose a question? Michelle?
I would, yeah. You had mentioned that about 30% of top-level executives speak English, maybe less in smaller companies. So the question is kind of two-part. One, what does this imply? Is it important to know some Spanish when working with partners in Spain? And also in those areas where you have Basque or Catalan or Galician, do those executives, I assume that everybody in the country speaks Spanish as well and has their other. Yeah. So two parts to that question.
So the first one, the percentage refers to fluent English, like a basic understanding or understanding for working on an email capacity, like sending emails, accepting orders, you will find is much higher. So on a day-to-day basis, the understanding of English is much higher. For a negotiation, deep negotiation, it probably 30%. When it is changing, new generation, like my nephews, the percentage is much higher. But I would say the top executives for all school families, like more traditional, I would say it's not higher than 10. It's no problem. Like you will see these people, if they are in businesses because they are smart and they know how to find their way. So I've been advising Spanish companies for 20 years now. And I can tell you, I've met people with no understanding of English, French, any other language, and they were able to sell into Russia, Lebanon, South Africa. So they will find their way. If what you offer is interesting for them, they will find a way. And second question, Catalonia and Basque Country, they all speak Spanish, no problem. It just, you will be perceived more local if you have a local partner. It's advisable. Of course, you can manage your business from a single distributor or single partner based in anywhere, but because of the size of the market, it's advisable to have a in some regions. For example, in the Canary Islands or in Mallorca Islands, it's good to have a local partner just because they are islands. So it's more.
Probably depends a little bit too on the sector you're involved in and how, yeah. Yep. Sounds good. Michelle, did you have an additional question?
Nope. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Wonderful. Any other questions that Juan can answer?
Laura, I've got a question that, thank you.
Sure.
First, thank you, Juan, for that presentation. Nice and complete and enlightening. I'm just kind of curious to follow on and ask your ideas and thoughts about the energy situation in Europe generally and what the implications are for Spain. I think you already spoke about the LNG capability, which sounds great. We know about what the gas pipeline challenge has been for Germany in terms of sourcing that out of Russia. But recently I was struck by news reports about the French and the challenges that they're going to be experiencing in their generation of electricity. And for most people that are aware of what happens in France, I think they've got close to 90% or 85%, I forget what the exact value is, but a tremendously large number of nuclear power plants generating their electricity. But unfortunately, of late, due to a variety of circumstances, there's been some challenges in the nuclear generation area for France, and it only compounds what's happening in Europe. And so how isolated is Spain going to be from any of the implications of what they say to be potentially a threefold increase in electrical energy costs for France? Is there a sharing? I'm just kind of curious to learn more from you what you might know about that.
Well, that's a very complex question. No, not the question itself. Is the times uncertain for everybody. But there are some things. When I mentioned the gas pipeline that Germany is requesting urgently, it will take 2-3 years to be built. That's the first question. Sorry, and maybe I should have been more specific. Even though it's approved tomorrow, it will still take 2-3 years. It's not going to be immediate. The good thing is that it's a whole reshape. Instead of depending on only one source from Russia, which was not very smart, if you think about it. Everybody's very smart after things happen, but now that if you think about it, it's like, well, maybe you shouldn't be trusting only one supplier. But I think it's good for Europe that there is this reshape, so we don't depend on one source. Traditionally, France was against that because, well, they export energy. So if we provide a pipeline that will stop the isolation, it may affect them. Regarding the nuclear situation, it's a very complex and political here in Europe because, for example, in Germany, in the cabinet, the Greens are in cabinet at the moment, and the whole policy, well, they became famous because they are against nuclear energy, but now they have to accept it because otherwise there is not enough. In the case of Spain, I can tell you, an American company, we work with the Extremadura government, which is one of the southwest of Spain, in the FDI capacity, like we help them to identify foreign investment. And one of the, probably, I don't know if you heard about it, but Leonardo DiCaprio invested in a company that produced diamonds. So it made it in the news here in Spain, and it was, oh, Leonardo DiCaprio is investing in Spain to produce diamonds. And it's like, what? And the truth is, this company produced diamonds, but for microchips. So it's not diamonds. So the thing about these microchips is it requires a lot of energy. That's why they need to get a very specific location. The situation in Extremadura is the region of Europe with the highest solar exposure of the whole Europe. So producing diamonds with the main cost is energy is super cheap because of solar. So what we have in Spain is sun. We are famous worldwide because of our sun on our beaches. Now we are using the sun to produce to produce things. So another project we are working is a CPD. Traditionally, CPDs they were thinking only in the north, like Finland, Norway, because it requires a lot of energy and keep temperatures low. Because of the solar production in Spain, we are ready to produce, set up CPDs in the south, because the cost of energy is so low with solar. So yeah, things are changing, and investment that were blocked, or as I said, put on hold after the crisis, is now fueling, channeling with this next gen.
Thank you. I know it was a complex subject, but you treated it very well, Juan. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. Hopefully you can travel to Spain and we can discuss it over wine. We have this tradition to discuss
In
things
October.
in October. So Laura?
And actually, I will take that as a segue, a properly paced segue to talk a little bit about the trade mission that we are going to be putting on in October. So we, Kansas Global and Gedeth Network are putting on a trade mission to Spain and Portugal. This is going to be the week of October 17th, so the 17th through the 21st in October. What we're going to be doing is going to both Madrid, looking at some of the provincial areas around Madrid, and then going to Portugal as well over the course of the week. What really differentiates the trade missions that we do with our global partners is that, you'll see the normal group meetings where we'll visit the federal government or provincial governments to get their briefings and whatnot. But beyond that, we will be tailoring meetings for your company specifically. So once you're signed up for the mission, we'll have pre-consultation for the mission of learning about your company, learning about your goals in Spain or Portugal, and determining who might be the best partners for you within that country. And then Spain, or Juan's team, will work over the coming weeks to partner you with potential companies like that within Spain and Portugal. So that's the idea for this particular mission. We're really focused on the idea of wanting to make sure you come out of a mission with us with potential business leads that will allow you to be successful. Juan, do you want to add anything that maybe I didn't cover in terms of the substance, or yeah, go ahead and add.
I think you covered it perfectly. Like, we are looking forward to welcoming you here. As I mentioned at the very beginning, we are a welcoming country. We love socializing. So it would be great to have it here.
Wonderful. Sounds good. If you're interested in the trade mission, let me know before the end of the webinar. I'll put my email in and we'll be following up with you as well. But if that is something of interest for you, we would love to have you join the mission. The cost of it is going to be $4,000 a company. That does not include travel costs over to Spain. However, I will tout a program through the Kansas Department of Commerce called the KITMAP program, which is the Kansas International Trade Marketing Assistance Program. And you can get some of your costs, both for the trade mission cost and travel costs, covered through that program. And Jeff, if you want to add anything to that as well, feel free to do so. So with that, I'm actually going to hand it back to Jeff, unless there's any questions about the trade mission or any questions about Spain and Portugal. Okay, Jeff, over to you.
All right, there don't appear to be additional questions. Yeah, I can just follow up. The KITMAP program has been one of our successful programs to be able to help Kansas companies project themselves into international marketplaces. We've also got a number of other programs, the very famous, the longest standing program, what we call, and the acronym is KITSAP, which is the Kansas International Trade Show Assistance Program, which provides for some level of cost reimbursement for trade show exhibiting. And so that's, again, been a longstanding program that the state of Kansas has offered. We also have, we participate in the SBA supplied state trade expansion program as well. And that also provides for selected activities, some assistance to Kansas companies that are, again, looking to be able to either exhibit at trade shows, participate in trade shows, participate in trade missions that are typically under the STEP program, not necessarily in this case. But we've got a variety of ways that we work with Kansas companies directly, as well as with other service providers, such as Kansas Global Trade Services, again, to try to be able to emphasize and accelerate their ability to be able to export and participate globally. I encourage anybody who hasn't already done so to visit our website, which also has a lot of information about the ways in which we help companies, not just about the programs I discussed, but also some of our other program activities. And there also are the recordings from our previous webinars that are accessible at that website. So we have treated a number of different subjects that are still relevant today, including supply chain and some of the other marketplace initiatives for specific target markets, et cetera. So again, I just encourage everybody to go to the kansascommerce.gov website, which will provide a lot of that elaboration. So with that, unless there are any questions that I don't see, I'd like to go ahead and thank everybody for their participation, and certainly thank you, Juan, as well as Kansas Global for being able to offer this kind of opportunity to Kansas companies. And I think that it ought to be a very rewarding experience. I am not going to be able to go on this particular mission, although it sure did sound exciting and interesting. I particularly liked your quality of life commentary, Juan. So that ought to be a nice little benefit for anybody who's able to go. So unless, Laura, you have anything else to add, or there are any questions that emerge at the last minute, I'm going to go ahead and again, thank everybody for participating. We look forward to being able to help you in the future with additional webinars on subjects both like the supply chain, as well as target market kinds of discussions like the topic today. So again, I officially tell everyone that it looks like the webinar is now over with, and we'll make sure that if there are any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to either myself, to Kansas Global, and of course to Juan directly, and we can follow up. But with that, I'd like to thank everybody and say goodbye.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff. Bye, everybody. Thank you for joining. Have a good day.